It's new radio review time here at Comms by Kemp Outside, and we're going to take a look at the Wouxun KG-UV9PX Plus. It's in a PX box, but it's the Plus in yellow. Guys, check it out. Hey guys, I'm Kevin, and this is Comms by Kemp Outside. We're your inside source for outdoor comms. I love doing new radio reviews, guys. I'm super excited about this one. This one I picked up from Better Safe Radio, right? And it is the latest in the iterations of the UV9PX, right? So the UV9 series of Wouxun radios, right? And it's Wouxun, pronounced ocean. Some people call it Wouxun, whatever you want to call it, but it's basically a Chinese radio. And guys, they have just released these radios in a brand new color. And if you watch my channel, you know I like high-vis colored radios because I do a lot of using these radios in the field. And if I ever drop one, I want to be able to find it. And so guys, they now have it in this high-vis yellow. So when I saw this, I'm like, man, I got to give this a shot. So here we go. So what comes in the box? Well, it comes with a radio, right? Comes with some user information like a manual and stuff. Comes with an antenna, right? And this antenna is a, if I can get it out of the package, should be a dual band antenna. So FM 136 to 174 and 400 to 520. And notice this is an SMA male antenna, which means the radio is an SMA female. This is different than most of the Wouxun radios, which are the exact opposite, right? So keep that in mind. If you're going from other Wouxun radios to this one, you may need to get new aftermarket antennas if that's the kind of thing you want to do. It comes with a battery, right? And this battery is a 2,200 milliamp hour battery, 7.4 volts, and it is USB-C rechargeable on the bottom, so I really like that. Let's go ahead and slide this thing on. Okay. And then one thing that I am not a fan of, right, is it does come with a belt clip, but the belt clip goes on the battery. And I hate it when the belt clip goes on the battery because if you buy extra batteries, you have to buy extra belt clips, right? And I don't know if the belt clips comes with the extra battery. I did get an extra battery with this, so we're gonna find out. Oh, well, guess what? There's the extra belt clip for the other battery, so that's good. It's got 2 screws in the pouch there. And then also there is another bag with 2 screws, so I've got 4 screws for 2 belt clips, that's good. It comes with this little charging brick, right, that is USB-C to USB-C on the battery, and so this is output of, looks like 5 volts at 2.4 amps for a max of 20 watts. It's a nice little power brick, so I'm gonna hang on to that. And then they also ship it with this really nice Anchor USB-C to USB-C cable, this braided cable. This is a really nice cable to come with this radio. And then it comes with a branded wrist lanyard, which I'm always a fan of wrist lanyards because, well, I like to keep track of my radios. Let's take a look at the extra battery that I got with this radio. Now, you have to order this in addition to the radio itself. It doesn't come as part of the package, but here is the extra battery pack. So I'll just pop this out. And then this one is another 2,200 milliamp hour battery that has the USB-C. So my guess is that when you order the battery, they also send you a belt clip because I didn't add that to my order. So cool, because you know if you're gonna get the belt clip with the battery, I have no problem with it. But if you don't get the belt clip with the battery, then I really like it when the belt clip attaches to the radio instead of the battery. I'm gonna get this put together and gonna turn it on and take a look at what we got. All right, guys, now that we have everything assembled on the radio, I thought we'd do an outside the radio tour before we get into the programming and the specs and all that stuff. We're also gonna do a power test and a spurious emissions test on this radio to make sure everything's copacetic. But let's just talk about the exterior of the radio. So the radio body itself is yellow with a black battery. Pretty cool, definitely high vis. You have two knobs up top. One is volume on off, right? And then the bottom one is a VFO or channel select, right? So I really like that. I like having two knobs on the top of the radio for that. On the side of the radio, there's a top button up here, a single PTT, and then two programmable buttons at the bottom. I wonder if you can program that top one as a PTT, or if you can program any of these side keys as a PTT. We're going to find out about that. On the other side of the radio, there is a door for a speaker mic, right, which is the Kenwood K1 style speaker mic connector. This does have a little light on top, and then it also has little LEDs on top. And then it has a numeric keypad and a couple of functions with a nice size speaker. So that is a walk around the radio. I am going to read this radio a chirp and take a look at the programming. One of the cool things about Better Safe Radio is that this radio comes programmed with a lot of frequencies already programmed in, some that you can transmit on and some that you can just monitor for the radio, and then you can go ahead and adjust that as you want. But let's show you what's programmed into the radio. Here we go. All right, guys, so I've got everything set up. I have read the radio in chirp, and I'm going to get screen record going here so you can check this out. All right, screen is recording, so here we go. So basically, this is what is programmed into the radio. And one of the things I do love about Better Safe Radio is they have the whole idea of being prepared in case of emergencies, natural disasters, that kind of stuff. So they put a whole bunch of stuff in the radio that you can monitor, and some of it you can transmit on, some of it you can't. Now, it is transmit locked to the ham bands from Better Safe Radio, but you can unlock it in chirp. So here's what we've got. So you can see the first 22 to let's see, got a bunch of, basically, yeah, the first 30 channels are GMRS channels. Now, some of those are just your standard simplex channels, and some of them are the repeater channels. They're kind of mixed in there, so you kind of have to figure that out. And then, as you can see, they have a tone assigned in there of 141.3 for GMRS channel 1, 210.7 for channel 2. So they've got a number of tones in there. And I'm going to do a video on whether or not you should use tones on FRS and GMRS in a future video. So stay tuned for that. I'm in the process of writing that video. So stay tuned for that. But bottom line is this is what's in the program radio. And then starting with channel 31 there, you can see MERS channel 1, and then 32 is MERS channel 2, 33 is MERS channel 3, and then obviously MERS 4 and 5, right? So really interesting that, you know, those are in there right away. I love MERS, the multi-user radio service. So be sure to look into that if you're looking for a license-free radio service. It's a great little 5-channel radio service on VHF. That's super cool. So right there you have GMRS and MERS, and then you have a bunch of open spots, right? From 36 down to, looks like 100 is wide open. So you can program anything in there you want. This is where you would program in, you know, if you want to leave it just as it is and then add to it, you could, you know, add in your local simplex frequencies you use on 2 meters and 70 centimeters. You could add in your local repeaters. You could add in anything you want in there. And then starting with 101, right, we have the Maritime Marine Service, or Marine VHF is what I like to call it. And these are the Marine VHF channels. And so, you know, really, really good ones to monitor are obviously Marine Channel 16, Marine Channel 9, Marine Channel 22 Alpha. That's the one that the Coast Guard communicates on. Those are really good ones to monitor. But as you can see, they're all in here. And then you've got a couple of repeater channels on 131 to 134. And then they have channel 20 separated out. And then here's where it gets interesting, guys. So like, there's a ton of stuff in here. So here's some U.S. Coast Guard channels that you can monitor. So if the Coast Guard is active in your area, like, I mean, I live in Florida, so Coast Guard is really active here. You know, these are Coast Guard frequencies that you can monitor and listen to. Now, you obviously don't want to transmit on these frequencies. You don't want to interfere with the Coast Guard, right? But those are definitely ones that you can monitor. And then here are some more Marine VHF channels, 161 through, it looks like, keeps going here, 188. So a lot of Marine VHF, and a little bank of blank channels. Boy, try saying that 3 times fast. Bank of blank channels. And then starting with 201 here, here's some ham radio stuff. So it's the 2-meter calling frequency, 146.52 megahertz. 446.0 is the 70 centimeter call frequency. Then you can also monitor the 223.5. That's the 1.25 meter call frequency for ham radio. And then looks like they've got some 900 megahertz frequencies to monitor in there. And then these look like they're all just ham radio simplex frequencies in 2 meters. These might also be repeater outputs. They're just in the radio, but just things that you can scan. And then it looks like we've got a few 70 centimeter frequencies to listen to as well. And then looks like we've got some space station stuff. So the ISS, the International Space Station frequencies. And then it looks like some Russian frequencies. It then has the APRS frequency, which obviously this doesn't have APRS built in, so you might be able to receive data packets, but unless you've got it connected to like a Mobile Link TNC or something like that, you're not going to be able to see what those packets are. Then it's got some interesting, frequencies, like it has a frequency that Walmart apparently uses, or Checkers, Yokohama, different frequencies. I don't even know what all these are. And guys, on Better Safe Radio, you can see the list on their website. And I'll put a link down in the description below to the list of all the frequencies that they program into radios, right? Now here, starting with 301, it looks like we've got AM airband stuff. So, you've got the on-guard frequency, 121.5. Looks like there's a bunch of different frequencies in there for AM airband, and of course you can just scan all this stuff. If you're anywhere near an airport, you can just scan that and see what's being used in your area. Looks like there's also some military air stuff going on. Like if you look, starting with channel 344, we get into the 242 megahertz frequencies, and then up into 351, 357, 384. This radio is really wideband received, so it's really, really cool. U.S. Air Force search and rescue channels, United States Navy search and rescue, U.S. Coast Guard search and rescue. Looks like American Airlines, Continental, UPS, Delta, Southwest, DHL, FedEx, Delta, United. Some cool frequencies to monitor there. And News Chopper frequency. FBI, U.S. Department of Interior, NTSB. A bunch of interesting stuff. VBS, I don't even know what VBS is, other than Vacation Bible School, but I'm guessing that's not what what they have in mind here. But a lot of frequencies, right? And then, oh, I'll bet you that's VHF business band, right? So VHF business band, and then UB is, I bet you it's UHF business band. So a lot of stuff in there. Looks like some 800 and 900 megahertz business band stuff. ISR, not really even sure what that is. Right, there's just so much stuff to monitor in here. Here's some more FEMA, fire, immigration and customs enforcement, some more U.S. Marshals, United States Air Force, Department of Energy. Looks like Secret Service, CIA, FBI, DOJ, IRS. Can find out if they're going to audit you. Federal prisons. All right, there's a ton of stuff in here. Really, really interesting. Fire, medical, law enforcement frequencies. You know, just a ton of stuff. I'm guessing that's medical. Search and rescue EMT frequency. Bunch of stuff in the 900 megahertz band. I don't even know what any of that is. Right, but you can just scan all this and just see what's active in your neck of the woods. Here's MARS, the Military Auxiliary Radio Service, I think is what MARS stands for, right? So all the MARS frequencies. U.S. Air Force MARS, U.S. Army MARS. Here's Civil Air Patrol frequencies. I was in Civil Air Patrol as a kid. So a bunch of Civil Air Patrol stuff. Right, and we're getting to the end here. I don't know what AAR is, but let's keep scrolling down here. I'll have to even look up what some of this stuff is. I'm coming to the end here because it's got 999 memory channels. But, yep, right at the end there are the NOAA weather frequencies. And a few more repeat frequencies. So, there you have it, guys. That is what is in this radio, straight from Better Safe Radio. All right, guys, so as you can see, that is a bunch of frequencies, right? And quite honestly, it's more than I need in the radio. And I'm gonna need a bunch of free channels to program in all the stuff that I wanna program in, because I program in a large majority of the repeaters that I use in the state of Florida and for when I travel and that kind of thing. So I am not going to want all of this in this radio, but what's really cool is I can pick and choose what I want and what I don't want. The other thing that I can do is, because I program multiple radios in Chirp, one of the things that I can do is I can pick up a second radio, right? And I can program some of this stuff into that radio and use it as a scanner, right? So let's just say I wanted to dump, you know, a bunch of the, you know, AM aircraft band stuff into a radio just to use to scan AM aircraft stuff. I could pick up a radio that scans that frequency that is wideband like that and put it in that radio, right? Or what I can do is I can create separate profiles in Chirp so that when I know, like when I'm gonna go to an air show and I know that like Sun and Fun is in Lakeland, which is like the second largest fly-in in the United States. When Sun and Fun goes in, I might write to this radio all the AM aircraft frequency stuff into this radio, but the rest of the time, I run a different program that doesn't have all that stuff in the radio. So by saving all of this to Chirp, you can save it for later and then use that information as you see fit. Or, you know, if you want to, you can get a couple of these radios and have them programmed for different things depending on what you want, and maybe even pick different colors, right? So maybe if you want one that you're going to use primarily for scanning, and listening and that kind of stuff, maybe you get a yellow one and then you get a black one for all of your, transmit stuff, for ham radio. And if you want, I think, they also sell a GMRS version of this radio. And so you could get one of those and have all of this scanning stuff in with GMRS, because you're only going to be transmitting on 22 GMRS channels anyway. But for ham radio, I put a lot of repeater channels and simplex channels and things into the radio. So I'm going to be taking some of this out and reorganizing it into what I want and what I need. But I'm definitely saving this as a profile in Chirp so I can pull out of it what I want and put it on, the radios that listen to those frequencies. So really, really cool thing from Better Safe Radio. It's really fascinating. Like, it would have taken me forever to go look up all of these channels and figure out, what do I want to listen to? What do I not want to listen to? I'm really fascinated by like military aircraft and that kind of thing. So having those frequencies in, I'd be really interested to scan, Mars and Civil Air Patrol and Coast Guard frequencies and things like that, just to listen. Make sure you don't transmit on those, but just to listen, right? Very, very cool. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this program to what I want in Chirp and then write it to the radio. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a bunch of testing on this radio. We're going to do spurious emissions testing. We're going to do power output testing. So stay tuned for all that. We got a lot coming, so stay tuned. All right, guys, this is a test of the Wouxun UV9PX Plus. We're going to do power tests on both 2 meters and 70 centimeters on all power levels. So we're on 2 meters, a 2 meter calling frequency on high power. So here we go with our first power test. And on high power, we are getting 10 watts of power, 9.98 to 10.01. That is pretty good. Let's go into menu, and we're going to go down to middle, menu, exit. Here we go to 146.52 megahertz on middle. So middle power is 7.61 watts transmit power. All right, let's go to low power. All right, and here is low power. Low power is 2.52 watts on 2 meters. All right, let's go to 70 centimeters. And on 70 centimeters on high, we are getting 10.62 watts. Let's go to a setting of middle for the power setting. And on middle, we get 5.17 watts, 5.15 watts. And on low, we get 2.75 watts of transmit power on low on 70 centimeters. So that's a power test of the Wouxun UV9PX Plus ham radio, a true 10 watt radio. All right, we're going to do a spurious emissions test on 2 meters on the Wouxun UV9PX Plus. Remember that all spurious emissions need to be under 40 dB from the fundamental and below the blue line, which indicates 25 microwatts. So we're transmitting, we have the radio set on middle power so we don't blow out the tiny SA. And we're gonna have to give it a little bit to sort everything out. As you can see, the fundamental is growing and any spurs are dropping out. It looks like this is going to be a clean radio, very clean radio. That is a pass for the Wouxun UV9PX Plus. That's the model. Clean radio. Let's test 70 centimeters. All right, guys, here is a spurious emissions test on 70 centimeters on the Wouxun UV9PX Plus, transmitting on middle power so we don't blow out the tiny SA here. And it takes a while, in these upper frequencies for this to sort out. So we're going to give it a little bit of time here as we transmit and let the tiny SA do its work. So as it's doing its sweep, we see the fundamental growing, a couple of spurs. We're going to see if these spurs drop out as the tiny SA gets a better idea of what the radio is actually doing. I'll let it keep going there. And as you can see, none of the spurs are moving above that blue line, which indicates 25 microwatts. In fact, the spurs are dropping out as the tiny SA keeps doing its sweeps. So as we can see, this is a pass. The second harmonic is 47 dB down, the third harmonic is 55 dB down, and it looks like they're dropping out. So that is a clean transmitter on 70 centimeters. Let's see if that last one drops out. Yep, see, it's just getting lower and lower. That's a clean transmitter. All right. That's the Wouxun UV9PX Plus on 70 centimeters, clean radio. All right, guys, so as you can see, great tests. I love this radio. Now, I want to read you some of the specs and some of the stuff. I just want to make sure I get it right, so I'm referring to my iPad right off screen. So let's talk about transmit, right? So this radio comes from Better Safe Radio locked to the ham bands, which is 144 to 148 megahertz for 2 meters, and 420 to 450 for 70 centimeters, right? But in chirp, as I said before, you can unlock this radio, and if you unlock it, it will transmit on 136 to 174 megahertz and 400 to 512, right? So that is your 2 meter ham band, MERS, Marine VHF, right? Not that you should transmit on those frequencies, but you can. And then of course a whole bunch of other frequencies in between there. And then for 70 centimeters or 400 to 512, that's your 70 centimeter ham band, that's your GMRS and FRS channels, and then a whole bunch of other things that, you know, again, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just letting you know that this is only legal to transmit on the ham bands, but you can do what you want. And I'll just say, you know, one of the reasons why I really like the tact that Better Safe Radio takes in terms of programming all of this stuff in there is, number one, it's really cool to just monitor what's going on around you. But, you know, I'm a boater, I'm a hiker, I'm a camper, so all of my radios are transmit enabled out of band. Because if I have to call for help or respond to a call for help, I really don't care what radio I'm running. So, for instance, all of my ham radios are unlocked to transmit on the Marine VHF band. Now, when I'm on my boat, I'm using my Marine VHF radio, but sometimes I monitor multiple channels. Like my Marine VHF only monitors one channel, so I monitor 16. But when I'm out on the boat, I'm oftentimes monitoring channel 9 on one of my ham handhelds, just because that's a second Marine channel that's often in use, or I'll monitor 22 Alpha, which is the channel that the Coast Guard communicates on, communicating with vessels in distress. So, or makes, you know, general safety announcements and those kind of things. So I maintain watch on Marine VHF channels on my ham radios all the time. And in the case of emergency, I wouldn't hesitate to transmit. Now, I also program MERS and GMRS FRS into my radios because as a family, we use GMRS, and I have a GMRS license on WRQG-272, and I'm oftentimes not going to carry 2 radios, so while the rest of my family is carrying GMRS radios, I just carry my ham radio and use GMRS on it. And I'm just saying, that's just what I do, guys, and you may like that, you may not, it's up to you. I just, you know, when I'm hiking, I'm not going to carry 2 radios around. I'm just not. So, you know, that's just what I do. But anyway, I absolutely love this radio. I love how Better Safe Radio has all that stuff programmed in. And like I said, I'm going to delete out what I don't want, and I'm going to keep what I want, but I'm saving all of that in chirp so I can add it back into the radio anytime I want. So that's really, really cool. I love the yellow, guys. So like I have a plethora of black radios around, and I really wanted something different, something that stood out, something that if I'm out hiking and I set this down or I drop it, I can backtrack and find it. Boy, you can find that yellow. That is pretty sweet. And I have to say, I like this color yellow much more than the Vero VGC VRN76. And I think they actually even call that green, but it's yellow. But I definitely like this yellow more than that yellow. So just personal preference. Now, the big question is, why would I buy the UV9PX Plus versus some of the other UV9s out there, right? So there's the UV9 Plus, there's the UV9 Mate, there's a whole bunch of different ones. I really like that Mate, right? Because I like the orange color, right? And I before this came out, I was really considering the UV9 Mate because of the orange color. And Better Safe Radio doesn't sell that radio, they sell this one. And the reason why I went with this one was because it really seemed like this is the latest and best evolution of the UV9 series of radios. And, just for the price point and everything, I just thought that why not go with the latest iteration? It has the highest transmit power, it has the most features. I just really like this version of the UV9, and Better Safe Radio is the only place you can buy this version of the radio. So that's why I recommend it. And guys, I'm going to put down in the description below a link to where you can pick this up. I am an affiliate for Better Safe Radio, so if you use my link to purchase, it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it's a great way to support my channels. I get a little commission on the sale. And if I have any promo codes or anything from Better Safe Radio, I will put them down in the comments. As of the making of this video, I'm just going to put the generic one that Better Safe Radio offers. But I am working with Better Safe Radio, and eventually I will have my own coupon code, so I'm super excited about that. But just as I'm shooting this video, because this is the first video I'm doing with them, I don't have it yet, so just be on the lookout for that. Doesn't matter. Whenever you come across this video, guys, there will be a coupon code below, depending on which one it is which one is available at the time. So. Let's talk about receive, right? Because I was talking about frequencies. So this radio is a wideband receive. So it receives 76 to 108 FM broadcasts. That's your radio stations, right? Your FM radio stations. It receives 108 to 136 megahertz AM aircraft band, right? And that is a bunch of frequencies in there, right? And then it receives 136 to 180 VHF, right? So 136 to 180 megahertz VHF, which includes U.S. military, U.S. government, Mars, Civil Air Patrol, U.S. Coast Guard, International Space Station, all kinds of things. MERS, LMR, which is your business radio, public safety, search and rescue, VHF medical, marine VHF, right? NOAA weather radio. All kinds of stuff is in there, right? And then from there it receives, 219 to 250 megahertz VHF. So that includes the 1.25 meter ham band. It also includes some NORAD frequencies, U.S. Army helicopter frequencies, U.S. military aircraft frequencies, really cool stuff. It receives 350 to 400 UHF, right? Which is some more, military and law enforcement type interagency radio services. It includes 400 to 512 megahertz UHF, right, which is your 70 center ham band, but that's a lot of other U.S. government frequencies, business band frequencies, public safety, commercial airline frequencies, GMRS, FRS, all kinds, right? So lots and lots of stuff there. And then it also receives 700 to 986 megahertz, excluding cellular, right? It doesn't pick up cellular signals, but that has a bunch of frequencies in there, including the 33 centimeter ham band, cordless phones. Like we have a VTech cordless phone in our house still, because we have a landline for our business. We could intercept those on here. More LMR frequencies, a whole bunch of stuff in that 700 to 986 megahertz, including I think wireless mics, some of the wireless mics in the 900 megahertz band. It picks up all of that, guys. So there's a super wideband receive. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can listen to. It is a true dual band receive radio. So a lot of my cheaper radios, right, like my Baofangs and stuff like that, are dual watch, right, where you have an A and a B and it's listening to both frequencies, but as soon as it receives one, it will mute the other, right? And so you can only listen to one at a time. This is true dual receive, which means it will play the audio from two receiving frequencies at the same time. So it's true dual receive. It also is a portable repeater. It has a repeater function where you can set it up to repeat just one way, or true, two-way operations where if I was at a base camp, I could maybe attach a high gain antenna to this, maybe a J-pole I throw up in a tree, and then use HTs around the campground using this radio as a temporary repeater. Now, if you're doing a lot of repeater stuff, this isn't a high duty cycle radio, so it's not fit for that, but just for, just some general communications here and there, that's a really cool feature, guys, and I'm going to do a video on that just to show you how to set this up as a little repeater for when you're camping and stuff. So I'm going to do that. I'm really excited about that one. It does hold 999 memory channels, as I said before. Guys, there is a lot of stuff on this radio. It can do so many things. It's really, really cool. One of the things that I am a little bit bummed out about is its IP rating, right? It's IP55 rated, right? I would have loved to see a higher, at least waterproof rating. I would have loved to see it be, IP66 or 67 rated. So I am gonna have to be a little bit careful with this when I'm outdoors doing outdoor activities, especially in the rain and stuff like that. I wish it was a little bit higher IP rating, but I do have some other handhelds that have higher ratings so that I can switch to them in inclement weather. So, but most of the time I'm operating a radio, I'm not operating a radio in bad weather. So I don't have to worry about that for the most part, but I do have to keep that in mind just a little bit. The receivers are super heterodyne receivers, right? They're not system on a chip receivers. So, it's a higher quality radio than the ones that you are going to just pick up off Amazon, right? And I'm not knocking those. I'm not knocking, Baofangs or TID Radio or, some of the other, Radio Oddities, some of those other ones. I run those radios a lot. I use those radios a lot. But if you want a little higher class radio, right? You want to step up to a higher class handheld. I really like Oceans. I think I have like 5 or 6 Oceans now. Really, really like them. I've always liked them. And this one is going to be one of my daily carries. This thing is going to go with me all over the place because I love it. Well, guys, I think that's it for now. We've covered a whole bunch of stuff on this radio, and I'm sure I'm going to have a whole lot more to say about it in the future as I continue to use it. But for the most part, guys, I can't think of a single thing I would change about it other than the IP rating. I would love to see this just, again, have a little bit higher water resistance rating. But I'm super excited to have it, and I'm super excited to work with Better Safe Radio. So guys, check out their website, right? I mean, I love their take on, preparedness and why you should have really decent handhelds. Guys, they also sell GMRS versions of these radios. So there's a GMRS version. There's also a ham radio version of this radio that isn't as high a power, right? So you can save a little bit if the price of this radio is a little too steep for you and you want to buy something a little bit less expensive. They have a version of this radio that I think is a 5-watt transmitter instead of the 10. And it is a fantastic radio, guys. You can get that one. And then they have previous iterations of this radio also for sale, guys, with a few less features, but still fantastic radios. I would be happy to own any of them. And you can get those for a little less money as well. So this is kind of like their flagship ham radio. And so, if you're buying but on a budget, definitely check out Better Safe Radio anyway. I'm sure that they have something in your price point that will get you a really good radio in your hands if you can't go with the full-blown UV9PX Plus. Also keep in mind, guys, if you hate brightly colored radios, like if you're like Kevin, that is the stupidest decision you've ever made in your entire life. All of your radios should be black. Guess what, guys? They have a black version of this radio. One other thing that I will mention, because I forgot to mention it, is they have lots of different screen settings. So if the screen setting that you have doesn't work for you, you can change it to a different color. You can change it to a different background. You can have, light text on dark or dark text on light. You can do anything you want with this radio. One other thing, guys, my last thing and I almost forgot to mention it, is one of my problems with radios that have these kinds of screens is that when they time out, right, when the screens time out and the screen goes off and I set this radio down, I will forget that it's on, right? And then I will come back to it later to go use it and the battery will be dead because I didn't realize I left it on, right? I'm waiting for this screen to time out because I set it for 20 seconds. But when this screen goes off right there, now there's nothing to indicate that this radio is on. One of the things that I really like about some other radios that I've reviewed is they have a breathe light up top and it just blinks every once in a while to let me know that the radio is on. This radio doesn't have a breathe light feature and I couldn't find one in any of the settings. So I'm kind of bummed. I would say maybe some feedback for Better Safe Radio is if you could add a breathe light feature to this radio that people could turn on or off, that'd be super helpful to me because I will set this on my desk and I will come back and try to use it tomorrow and I'll have a dead battery. That's actually why I bought 2 batteries for this radio, and so that I would always have a charged up battery because I know I'm gonna set this thing down and I'm gonna forget that it's on and it's gonna have a dead battery. So that is the other thing. So the waterproof rating, and I wish it had breathe lights. Other than that, guys, I love this radio. So again, link down below where you can pick up one of these if it's something that you're looking for. I want to thank Better Safe Radio for accepting me as an affiliate. I know I'm a small-time YouTuber, so I'm super excited to grow and hopefully grow with Better Safe Radio as well. Guys, I'm Kevin, and this is Comms by Kemp Outside. We're your inside source for outdoor comms. If you have any questions about the KG-UV9PX Plus, that's a big model number, from Wouxun, drop some in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, or you can connect with me on my other social media. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, or my website at kempoutside.com. Guys, I'd love to hear what you think about this radio. What do you think about the yellow? Would you go yellow or would you go black? Are there any other colors you'd like to see Mark consider at Better Safe Radio? Maybe, maybe a red or an orange, although we don't want to confuse it with the UV9D mate. So are there any other colors that you would like to see considered besides the yellow? I think that yellow is sharp though, guys. Anyway, drop some in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And thanks for watching. We will see you outside.